Eric Bibb, welcome back to Australian Musician.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Nice to be back and talking with you.
Yeah, you were here last in 2019. The world has changed quite a bit since then. What was your pandemic story? Where were you for most of it, and how did it affect your life?
I was at home here in Sweden, and contrary to the experience of most of my colleagues, I actually seem to have benefited from this hiatus from touring. I really discovered after the fact that I really needed to regroup and kind of take stock of career decisions and all of that. And when you're on the road more or less constantly, you don't really have the time needed to do that properly. So I was actually grateful for the time at home to reconnect with home routines and to basically get my house, together. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a new album called Ridin coming out just before the Australian tour.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's probably my most ambitious project to date. Fortunately, we had a lot of time to really tweak the concept and make sure the songs were fitting the album theme. It's kind of a follow-up to my previous album, Dear America, where we're talking about some serious issues. But having said that, I'll say that it's probably my grooviest album to date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some groovy musicians who join you?
Indeed. As on the last album, Dear America, on this new record, Ridin, we've had a chance to collaborate with some wonderful, iconic musicians. Coming to mind first is the amazing jazz guitarist Russell Malone, who's playing on 2 tracks. Russell is a musician who's played with lots of people through the years. Probably best known for his work with Diana Krall, but he's a consummate musician and a pleasure to work with. Not only that, who else do we have on this album? Russell Malone. I'm blanking out. On our last album, Dear America, we had Steve Jordan. Oh, Steve Jordan's on the next album, the Ridin album as well, on a few tracks, as well as the wonderful Tommy Sims. Harrison Kennedy is another great musician from a soul singer from Canada, who's a guest on one tune. Taj Mahal, of course, is on one tune. I call him my big brother.
Yeah. It sounds great, and we can't wait for that one to come out. Are you good at knowing when a song is finished and to leave it alone?
That's a great question. Fortunately, I have a great producer and dear friend who is a multi-instrumentalist, fantastic singer, engineer. His name is Glenn Scott, who's produced my records for the last two decades. And he's a wonderful person to go back and forth with. I'll send him a song and he might make a suggestion about the structure or saying there's a part perhaps that's missing that he feels it could enhance the song. And usually he's spot on. Sometimes he just said, "This is done, Eric. I'm going to play bass on it and leave it alone." But I'm fortunate in that I have somebody who I really trust musically, who I can, kind of go back and forth with. So I don't have to trust my own intuition on that. Sometimes you're so close to a song that you really need that objective set of ears, to not either over egg it or under egg it,
On your last Australian tour, you mentioned on stage that a lot of your songs are about going somewhere. You always seem to be going somewhere, and I guess the title "Ridin" of your new album continues that theme. A lot of the dates on the Australian tour you'll be getting there via road rather than airplane. Do you like the van travel and stopping off at country towns along the way?
I love it. I really love it. Greg, I live in the country on a farm. I'm not an active farmer, but we grow some vegetables. But being in the country is the place where I prefer to be. I mean, born and raised in New York City, the Big Apple, and I'm familiar with the whole vibe of a big city, Sydney or Melbourne, New York, Paris, and I've really come to appreciate more the contrast of being out in the country. I love the small towns in Australia. I love the small theaters. Traveling by road is a chance to really see where I'm going, not just arrive somewhere and not know how I got there. So I really do like traveling by car and even by train. And then there's the climate issue. More and more I'm becoming aware of how privileged a certain percentage of the world population is to even be able to get to one part of the globe very quickly, through air travel, but at what cost, So if I had the time and the wherewithal, I'd come to you by boat. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about a little bit about your last album and the song Dear America and the very powerful video that came with that, which perfectly captured the issues, the divide in America. You travel the world and you would also know that those issues are not unique to America.
Right.
With all of the knowledge we now have, how is it that we seem to be going backwards in many ways? What's your theory on it?
That's another very wonderful, thought-provoking question, which of course has been in my mind for a long time, particularly when it comes to songwriting. I look at the way things are in the world and I think, goodness, haven't we learned anything? We seem to, as you say, be rewinding our progress on many fronts. But on further reflection, I would say that probably we sense huge change, and change brings uncomfortableness. And I think that the people who are most resistant to change, and read into that the people who have benefited most from systems that are unsustainable, that are inequitable, those are the people who are going to be most resistant to change. And their reaction will be a fear-ridden reaction that will be very conservative, meaning that progress in general is threatening to those type of institutions and individuals. So I think we're going to see an intensification of craziness before we see a blooming of consciousness where people are collectively aware that everything is connected and that we need to be aware of that interconnectedness to go forward. So change is in the wind, change is on the wind. It's already with us. You can see young people active in a new way. I am convinced that there is a wave of progressiveness that will eventually dominate the news. But for the moment, we're in another space. Yeah.
People's attention spans also seem to be getting shorter and shorter, mainly thanks to the internet. Is it getting harder to cut through with meaningful lyrics, do you think?
Yes. Greg, I must tell you, when I'm out in public places, shopping malls or whatever, and I hear the music, if you want to call it that, that's being pumped through the systems, I'm appalled. I'm really appalled. I'm worried. I'm saddened because I think, I hope these young people who are walking around are aware of the trove of fantastic music. And I'll speak specifically to the kind of music, pop music, that I grew up with in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, 80s, that to me had a whole different a level of sophistication, musicality, literacy, all of that. Now what I hear is often very repetitive, short jingle-like phrases that are called a song. And the language used is worse than, it sounds like a text message. And I don't know if that's a direct result of just the internet. I have a feeling that's a big part of it, but there must be something else going on, because I pray for artists in general to stop chasing the buck, as it were, and return to art. You know, and that's a hard thing to tell people to do, because, you know, if you're a musician and you're living off making music, to some degree you have to be aware of trends. But let's face it, it can't continue like this. We need richer nutrition.
On a lighter note, I always enjoy seeing what guitars that you are using on stage. Which guitars have you been taking out on the road recently?
Well, in preparation for my tour in Australia, I focused on some of the instruments that Australian luthiers have produced, and I'm thinking of a great little parlor-sized guitar made by Scott Wise in Western Australia. I'm talking about a wonderfully big piano-like guitar made by Gabriel Ochoteco in Brisbane. So those two instruments will definitely be with me, and I'll probably have a third guitar. I'd love to travel with more, but I think for practicality's sake, it'll be 3 instruments. And there's always the possibility that I'll find something in Australia again.
Yeah. Well, yeah. On that subject, I don't know how closely you look at your itinerary, but Australian Musician Magazine presents the Melbourne Guitar Show, a 2-day guitar festival, and you're making an appearance there.
Perfect. You made my day.
So you'll have plenty of chance to check out a lot of guitars and a lot of talented luthiers.
That's great news. You know, that's like the cherry on the cake, you know.
Did you have any regret guitars, ones that got away, stolen, or lost?
You're going to go there. Okay. Yes, I do. And I think actually I have protectively forgotten some of those incidents, because I've had the chance to own, play, at least hold on to some fantastic instruments. And I have quite a few guitars that I love. But yes, there are old Gibsons and old Martins that got away from me. There's an old 6-string banjo made by the Swedish company Levine that I, to this day, regret somehow losing. But having said all that, I've been fortunate. I have come across and been able to purchase, and I've been gifted with some amazing instruments. So I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. On the Australian tour, you're doing some solo gigs before your band arrived. The band will be a little bit different, I believe, to the last tour.
Yes, yes, it will be. The guitarist who was featured beside me, his name is Christos Ridin. He's a Swedish Cypriot who's grown up in Sweden and is a wonderful, wonderful musician who has been featured on my earliest albums. The Opus 3 audiophile labels features Chris on acoustic instruments, but he's a fine electric guitarist. My bass player is the aforementioned Glenn Scott, my producer, who plays bass, sings like a god, plays keyboards like, you know, who, he's just a fantastic multi-instrumental. And the drummer is from the last tour in Australia, Paul Robinson, who played with Nina Simone for 20 years. So I'm surrounded by some wonderful, wonderful, wonderfully musical souls. Mm-hmm.
What's your approach to set lists, both when you're playing solo and then with the band, or do you even have a set list?
Yes, I do have a set list. And what's nice about this tour and the fact that we've been able to organize it with so much lead time is that I've been able to really go back through my catalog and find songs that I've let go of in terms of performing that I think are really worth bringing back onto the set list, songs that haven't been overdone by myself, and that I think the audience would really be excited about to hear. Maybe they're familiar with it from earlier records, but they haven't heard me perform these songs. So some of them will be those songs. Others will be, of course, new songs, some songs from the new album, obviously. But mostly, I also am looking to, especially in a solo show, when it's just me, I'm looking to tell stories that are going to really be interesting for the whole evening. So there'll be some songs that are quite rich in history, true story history, and there'll be lighter songs that are just fun to finger pick and, you know, throw out.
Yeah. Great. You're playing the Port Fairy Folk Festival again. What are your memories of Port Fairy?
I've been to Port Fairy at least twice, and my memories of that town and the festival are just glowing memories. I remember the first time I was in Port Fairy, I was first just knocked out by the layout of the town. I just thought it reminded me of an old Western town with a good vibe, you know, and I'm talking about, you know, US Western. It had that feel. I liked the fact that everything was pretty low to the ground. I liked that all the roads weren't paved. I was walking through the town on my way back to the festival site with my friend Guy Davis, wonderful musician. And I'll never forget this. We heard him before we saw him. And then we came across this chap with a resonator guitar playing 1920s country blues with an authority that just blew me away. And of course, it was C.W. Stone King. And I've since, you know, befriended him and met him in several places around the world. But he completely blew me away. And this is before he really got on the map. He was busking in the streets. He wasn't even on the festival circuit, you know. So these are memories that I treasure.
Do you enjoy playing festivals where you do get to hang out with other artists?
I do. It's one of the few times that I really find myself being able to catch up with what my colleagues are doing, because on the road, if it's not a festival, I'm in and out of the town pretty quickly. When I'm home, my preference is to stay home and not go out and see gigs, you know, in Stockholm, for example. Although I do that occasionally. I actually saw CW in Stockholm not too long ago. I saw Robert Cray as well, but mostly I stay home when I'm home. So festivals are the perfect opportunity to hear other people, hear what they're doing, hear their road stories, maybe even collaborate. You know, if there's a half a day, I might be able to write a song with somebody who I really appreciate, you know.
Yeah. Do you find that you do write while you're on the road, or do you need to be at home to really concentrate?
Oh, no. I write on the road as well. Often the whole business of being in another unfamiliar environment will spark something. I remember on one of my trips, many trips to Australia, I became aware of Troy Cassar-Daley, and I loved what he was doing, and I asked people around me to find a way to contact him. And I did, and I happened to be in his area for a day off, and I just boldly called him up and say, I really dig your stuff. Maybe I could come over and we could have a play. And it ended up being a co-write that we came up with that's on a record called Put Your Love First. So the idea of being able to not only meet, but co-write with somebody on the road is exciting. And, you know, you never know. It's not something you can really plan, but it's something that sometimes happens spontaneously.
Yeah. Last time we chatted, you told me of a bucket list wish to one day make an instrumental guitar album. Is that still
Yes.
in the back of the mind, or has that moved up?
No, it's still, it's very much something I think about quite often. Incidentally, during the pandemic, Greg, I had a chance to reconnect with an old friend of mine, a beautiful saxophone player named Ed Epstein. And we started sharing files through the ether. And it ended up being an album called Baritones, and it's instrumental. Him playing baritone saxophone and me playing baritone guitar. and it's simply called Baritones. You can find it on some of the streaming platforms. And I was so happy we were able to do that because, first of all, it put me in touch with that whole idea of wordless songs, you know, instrumental music, which I'd love to explore more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got something on the go, but it's not ready yet. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. So you're in Australia, February, March 2023.
Yeah.
The rest of 2023, is that all planned out?
It is, basically. We're doing some dates in France in April, the UK in May, possibly some key dates in the States following that. And then actually from the late summer through the winter, I have a theater project that I've been roped into where I'm not only providing music, but also going to be an actor.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. Where is that taking place?
Here in Sweden, not too far from where I live. So I'll be able to basically be a homebody for about 3 months, 4 months.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you back in Australia very soon. And it's been great to catch up again.
Always a pleasure, Greg. And thank you for your wonderful questions. And I hope we'll have a chance to actually see each other at one of the shows.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Okay, man. Take care.